What is up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Odds and Ends. And as the title suggests, we are talking about my top 10 favorite shoot 'em ups of all time. Now, I love the shoot 'em up genre. It's one of my favorite genres in all of video games. I love the skill involved. I love that they're easy to pick up to play, but sort of hard to master. But anytime you make a video like this, you sort of have to preface it by saying, these aren't the games that I feel are the best shooters of all time. These are my favorite shooters of all time, because I think that one of the best sort of abilities that you can have in a shooter is replayability. And all the shooters on my list certainly have replayability. Now, there are a lot of great shooters out there, everything from like Atari all the way up to like PS4, Xbox. So it is a huge category, and it really does feature something for everyone. So some of the games on my list are more for novice shooters, people that are intimidated by shooters, don't really play a lot of shooters. And some of the other shooters are for people that just love shooters. You know, they love that challenge and they want to master every shooter. But without further delay, let's go ahead and jump into my list of favorite shooters. Coming in at number 10 is Earth Defense Force on the Super Nintendo. Now, if I'm being 100% honest, I don't think that there are any great shooters on the Super Nintendo. Typically, they're arcade ports and they suffer from flickering and that like crippling slowdown that seem to take place on the Super Nintendo. I don't know why they just didn't take a couple enemies out so the game could run properly. But Earth Defense Force does get mixed reviews. SNES Drunk put it near the top of his list, while Austin over at Gameplay and Talk put it down at the lower portion of his list. But I definitely think it's a serviceable shooter that's worth your time, so let's take a look. EDF is an arcade port, and it's only a one-player game, which is a bummer. The enemies come at you hard and heavy starting in the first level, so you need to be ready. No tutorial stage here, straight into the gunfight. The parallax scrolling and the graphics are a bit better than average, but let's be honest, you don't fight clouds or parallax scrolling, you have to deal with these enemies. There's only one type of ship. At the beginning of each level, you choose from 8 different weapons, and it's up to you to figure out which weapon works best for you and in what situations. You select the weapon, you play the level, you can't switch in the middle of the levels, which is sort of a bummer, but that's how this game is made. There's your traditional machine gun, homing shot, lasers, etc. But there's also some really cool exotic weapons like atomic grenades or photon shots. They're all very cool, each with their various ranges and capabilities. For example, the homing weapon is the weakest, but it allows you to stay out of range and dodge enemies and enemy bullets. The grenades explode at a short range. They have a higher hit area and can destroy enemies and asteroids, but you can only deploy a few at a time. So there's like a balance, right? Acts as like this exploding wall in front of you. In addition to the weapons, you will have 2 satellites that not only fire at enemies, but can be used in a variety of ways. Now, this is actually quite a clever mechanic. You can use them as a shield. They can kind of circle around you and eat up enemy bullets. You can use them to shoot behind you. You can position them to just sit behind you and act as sort of like a rear defense. You can actually use them to hone in on enemies and attack enemies that are out of your range, or you can just like let them go aggressively and they can just attack all the enemies on the screen. In my opinion, this game has a medium difficulty. You start with 3 lives and you can take 3 hits before you lose a life. You also only get 3 continues, but adding to the difficulty is that there are no checkpoints. If you die, you go back to the start of the level. However, you can earn extra hit points if your score is high enough at the end of the level. You can max out to 5 total hits. So if you're playing really well, you can get pretty far in this game. In addition, there is a level up bar in the top center of the screen that will fill when you defeat enemies. As your level goes up, so does the power of your attacks, including your satellite orbs. You need to take advantage of this system in the earlier levels where things are quote unquote easier, so you can power up quickly. Once you reach level 5, if you manage to fill the life bar or fill that bar, you will get a hit point back. Understanding this mechanic is crucial to success in this game. If you like games like Gradius, where memorizing patterns and enemy shots and how to precisely take down bosses, then EDF might be for you. I also did a playthrough of it down below in the Let's Play the Classic section, so if you want to learn or watch a little bit more about the game, definitely check that out. But I think one of the most attractive things about EDF is, guys, how expensive are Super Nintendo games? EDF is like 20 or 25 bucks. So to get a really good shooter on a very popular console for 20, 25 bucks, I think that that is a good buy. So if you like that type of game, check out EDF. So typically I like shooters that are fast, frantic, lots of explosions. They're hard to sort of master because you got to learn all the enemy patterns. Aridian 2 on the Game Boy Advance, believe it or not, it's more of a slower, casual shooter. This is sort of the everyman's shooter, and it has one of the coolest intros of all time. Roll the intro! Aridian 2 is as straightforward as a top-down shooter can come. It hits on all the key elements and it just does those. And it does those very, very well. Great graphics? Check. Killer soundtrack? Check. Interesting weapon and pod system? Check. Speaking of the weapon system, it is a little unique. There are 6 different types of weapons, and you need to pick one at the start of the level. And now this is your default shot. You can unlock other weapons by collecting green orbs on the screen, but the green orbs also become a vital part of your strategy as they can restore your health, increase your current rate of fire by adding satellites, and you can kind of change their positions. You can sort of manipulate those around a little bit. You can also carry up to 3 bombs, and you can charge your main weapon, which will give you a powerful, straightforward blast that just cuts through enemies, and it punishes the bosses. The game is pretty long, coming in about 15 levels, but not to fret. I heard some of you just groan. The game does feature a health bar, checkpoints, and a password system to help you out, so you don't have to play it all in one go. The game's first level, though, is just an in-depth tutorial, which really lets you learn all of the basic mechanics. Aridian 2 is a great choice for those who don't play a lot of shooters and are intimidated by them. The game is really stripped down to shooting and dodging. Enemy patterns are predictable and can be anticipated, and there's always a checkpoint before the boss fight. By the way, the bosses are the best part of this game in my opinion. I love that they provide a health bar for the boss, and I think most fans of shooters like that feature, but specifically to the newer players or newer fans of the genre, it's a visual representation of their progress and can help them strategize better. If, for example, the boss has a small amount of health, maybe save that bomb and try and fight it out. Try to get off a charge shot. That way you can save that bomb for when you get in a pinch into the next level, increasing your ability to progress on that level. So again, I think novice shooter fans really like being able to, all from a life bar. I like being able to see that life bar. Now I touched on the graphics a little bit earlier, but I can't overstate how impressive this game looks. It's a 2D vertically scrolling shooter, but because they did such a great job with the graphics, it looks like it's in a 3D environment. They are all the levels are corridor style, no tricks, no gimmicks, and the developers did a nice job of making the environments look diverse. For replayability, Aridian 2 features a story mode, an arcade mode, a score attack mode, and a boss rush mode. Another interesting feature about Aridian 2 is that you can change the music setup. It's weird. You can change like the bass and the chords and all the little drum sections, you know. You can kind of adjust those. I don't think I've ever seen that in a shooter ever before. Now, if you want a physical copy, it's going to be about $40. But if you collect for Game Boy Advance or you want to add a really unique shooter to wow your friends when they come over and look at your game room. Like, have you ever heard of Aridian 2? Oh, no, I didn't even know that game was existed. You can sort of look like a boss or the king of your collection. But $40 for this game, I think, is totally worth it. It's tons of fun to play. And yeah, it's definitely one of my favorite shooters of all time. All right, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here with number 8. It's Raiden Fighters Aces on the Xbox 360. Xbox 360 sneakily has some really, really nice shooter titles on it. But when I say I'm cheating, Raiden Fighters Aces is actually 3 games. You get Raiden Fighters 2, and Raiden Fighters Jet, which is a game that I'm going to talk about today because I think it's the best game on the compilation. Let's take a look. Now, all 3 games in this compilation are slightly different. However, in Raiden Fighters Jet, there are a whopping 14 ships to choose from. Wowee. Each of them have different capabilities when it comes to speed, power, handling, etc. And of course, you also get super bombs, companion ships, and different types of missiles to help you along your way. Jet also features a slightly awkward scoring system where you collect medals, and when you collect 9 golden medals, this crest will appear, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger until you collect it for massive points. And there's also some bullet grazer elements that can increase your score. There's also Xbox achievements if you're sort of into that type of thing. But scoring and score attack is a bit complicated in this game. But if you like that type of shooter, then I would say Jet is definitely for you. As you can see from the video footage, Raiden Fighters Jet is a very difficult arcade-style shooter. There are constant enemies and bullets filling the screen. The tight controls are suited to the chaotic gameplay, and I dare say that they are perfect. They are perfect controls for this game. Although you will need some trial and error to find the ship that's right for you, when you get that sorted, you will be able to dodge and evade with the best of them. Most of the time. Destroying the basic popcorn enemies is very satisfying as they explode all over the screen. Bigger air and ground-based targets are chunky and look menacing as they dump massive amounts of bullets onto the screen. They can be intimidating, but they all have patterns. You need to use your wits and exercise patience. To defeat the massive bosses in this game, you will need to power up your main shot, and as you do, will also power up your other weapons like your special attack and your charge shots. Then you need to remember the enemy bullet patterns. Then don't die. Now, before we go any further, I 100% recommend that you get this game immediately if you collect 7th Gen. If you collect Xbox 360, get this game. You know how niche the shooter genre was at that time. So to get 3 games for about $45, I think is a steal of a deal. And unfortunately, these games, those types of games are the games that get sort of hoarded and collected by people that don't actually play their games. So if you're interested in shooters and you want to make a really smart purchase, Raiden Fighters Aces is definitely for you. Like I said, you get 3 games on there, 3 great Raiden games, one of these legendary franchise type games. And I remember playing this game when I was, well, not this game, but Raiden in the arcade when I was in the Marine Corps, and I was in Okinawa. They had a Raiden arcade game in the enlisted club, and we just play. It was tons of fun. Awesome game. I can't say enough. Get it. So coming in at number 7 is Cinemora EX. Now this is on pretty much everything. It's on PS4, Xbox One, Switch. I'm sure it's on PC. But it's very dark, and it deals with genocide. It says that as a warning of the game that, you know, the content might not be for everybody, which sort of gives a little bit of mystique, right? Like, but secondly, in most shooters, you're kind of like one-hit deaths, or maybe you have an energy bar. In Cinemora EX, the gimmick is time. It's all about time and manipulating time and working through time. And I think that that's interesting because it's like Time Crisis, the shooting game, where time management is important. Let's just take a look at Cinemora EX. One of the first things you're going to notice about Cinemora EX is that the game looks like $1 million, including the backgrounds. The backgrounds are absolutely impeccable. Bullets are bright and colorful. Enemy targets are defined, and you can see the energy that they have remaining, which is excellent. You can power up your main shot by collecting the red orbs, your special attack by collecting the green orbs, and the blue orbs will fill a meter that will allow you to manipulate time. You can slow everything down on the screen while concentrating your fire on a specific target, or slip through those tricky enemy bullet patterns. As I stated, you're not working with a standard life bar. The time remaining is your life bar, and you need to protect it. Be careful that you don't take too many hits, as you will not have enough time to make it to the end of the stage. When you do take a hit, not only will you lose some of your time, but your red power-ups get knocked out of you and start bouncing around all over the screen. Now, you do have a few seconds to sort of recollect them, and while this seems like a nightmare to deal with, you can add time by destroying enemies or collecting the orange orbs. Like I said, the story is a little confusing. The game is about time. Your life bar is time. You can slow down time. Enemies give you more time, etc. But the story takes place in two timelines. The first is a father seeking revenge because the Empire killed his son. The second timeline is about a race called the Inky, who are making their last stand against this evil empire. It's all very grim and sad. With that said, the game itself is fun to play. They do a great job of creating levels that are wide open and you can use the entire screen. And then in the next level, they put you in a confined space where precision movements are absolutely key. Some levels are bright and colorful, other levels are dark and gritty. They always seem to be changing up the style. The bosses are massive and you will need to take them down part by part. The fear of running out of time or taking a hit that will cause you to lose time is a constant factor in these boss fights, as they often hurl large amounts of bullets and missiles at you, and sometimes you just can't help but take a hit. It raises the stakes, drives suspense, thus the drama. And when you finally take down the boss, that sigh of relief hits you hard, and you are happy to move on to the next level. Now, Cinemore EX is a game that I've live streamed before. I love it. I love having it in my collection. It's easy to get your hands on. And the EX version adds some different modes like arcade, score attack, boss rush, that kind of stuff. I wrote that on my notes, that kind of stuff. That's real professional. The two-player mode's kind of weak, but it's really all about that single-player mode and that immersing yourself into the game. And I think this is an easy add to your collection because, like I said, it's on everything and it's dirt cheap. Coming in at number 6, here we go. Silver Surfer on the Nintendo. Now, Silver Surfer is one of those games that's sort of infamous. It's been bastardized on the internet, and its reputation is really based on what 2 or 3 people have said about it in the past with venomous assaults. And I don't think that that's fair. I think that Silver Surfer is very good, it's fair, and it's fun. All right, so notice I said very good, fair, and fun. I never said it was going to be easy. Silver Surfer is a great example of what a pure shooter looks like. No crazy gimmicks, no over-the-top scoring systems, no multipliers, no confusing power-up systems, and if you want to beat Silver Surfer on the NES, you need to get good and don't die. That is how a classic console shooter should be. My opinion, of course. You obviously play as the Silver Surfer, and you're going to blast your way through 5 stages, of which you can select any of the 5 from the beginning of the game. I'm trying to think of a game that actually does that. Darkwing Duck. Darkwing Duck has a stage select, and you can practice the levels. But that's pretty fair. Each stage you'll have a side-scrolling and a vertical-scrolling level, and finally a very short section that leads to the boss. You collect the F icons, so you can increase your firepower, and you can even collect orbs that can be used in a variety of ways to change your attack direction. There are plenty of power-ups in each level, and that'll help you get in a position to do well. There are also some hidden one-ups, speed power-ups, and bombs. Yep, you got bombs in Silver Surfer. I don't really remember that from the comics, but all you have to do is press select and kaboom, set off one of your bombs. After you've mastered the first 5 levels, you go to the Magic Zone, where you'll need to learn 3 more stages. Now, to be fair, these are the hardest levels in the game, and they should be. They're the last 3 levels. You finally get to the end, and you're met with somewhat of an underwhelming, disappointing final boss, but to me it almost feels like a reward for all of the hard work and perseverance that you have put in to master these 8 stages. So to help sort of orientate you into the favor of Silver Surfer. I'm going to leave a link down below to 2 videos that I think you need to watch. The first one is MrMatthews' NES Hard video, which is really, really good. And Stampede Gaming, Super Joe over at his channel, does a series called Game Breakers, where he teaches you how to use the power-ups and teaches you the levels of the game and sort of explains what's going on in a way that I can't. And those are very informative videos. And if you're thinking about getting Silver Surfer, you're like, Chris, I'm not sold yet. I need to see more. Check out those 2 videos and, hopefully that'll sway your opinion. But I love Silver Surfer on the Nintendo. Almost made it in the top 5, but I had to put it at number 6. Let's check out number 5. So here we go, in top 5 time. Beat out Silver Surfer by this much, guys, I swear. Number 5 is Nack on the Nintendo. Now, guys, listen to me. All of the great shooters have one thing in common. Out of all the elements, all the gimmicks, all the styles, there's one thing that really sets those great shooters apart from the mid-level shooters, and that is the just give me one more try aspect to them. That addictiveness that I know I can do it this time. And in September of 1991, Compile released what some people would consider the best shooter of all time, which is Nack. Yeah, man, truly remarkable and just a great gameplay experience. Let's take a look. So the story in Nack is a little flimsy. Inanimate objects are coming to life and you need to figure out why. The action is fast and frantic, and there is an in-depth power-up system. There's 5 different weapons, number 1 through 5, and if you collect the same weapon icon, you will power up that weapon. If you collect a different weapon, well, then you just got to switch to that weapon. There are also 4 different types of bombs represented by the letter icons. They each have their own range, their own effects, but be careful. When you use a bomb, your ship returns to its main shot and can leave you vulnerable. There's also a power-up chipset, a set of wings, thrusters, armor that will give you additional hits. Lastly, you can select the speed of your ship by pressing the select button. When you clear a stage, you're taken to a shop where you can buy armor and weapons, and you can take those with you to the next level. Each of the 8 stages contain a mid-boss and a final boss. You do get unlimited continues, so beating this game is really up to you and your own determination. Each stage looks different, and types of enemies are interesting and fit the stage. For example, in the first level, you fight a giant rabbit, so you're attacked by giant carrots. Only makes sense. A later level is a bank, and you're attacked by gold bars. It's actually quite impressive that they were not only creative enough to think of all these details, but it's impressive that they were able to get it all onto the NES cart without any slowdown. Like I said, Nack is that quintessential one more try game. It's fun to experiment with the power-ups. It's fun to experiment with the bombs. And it's just a great game. Now, unfortunately, it's so expensive that the only way that us mortals, us regular people are going to be able to get our hands on it is to emulate it or maybe download it if it's on the Nintendo store or something like that. But any way that you can play this game, you got to, because it is one of the all-time greats for sure. So here we are. Coming in at number 4 is Death Smiles on the Xbox 360. I'm not an Xbox guy. We got 2 Xbox 360 games on this list already. But I think when you look back at the 7th generation, a lot of us remember the bad things. The red rings of death, the wonky motion controls, the cheap tie-in games, the shovelwares, that type of stuff. It was a time when online gaming was coming into its own. But if you were to sift through all of that hot garbage, cut out all of the nonsense, you're going to find that the Xbox 360, giving us Death Smiles, gave us one of the greatest gaming experiences of all time. A shooter that is literally for everyone. That shooter's Death Smiles. So here's the gimmick with Death Smiles. You are in Halloween Town, and you need to fight your way to the end of the 9th stage with where you will fight Jitterbug. Seriously, that's his name, Jitterbug. Moving on. Once you beat Jitterbug, you decide whether you want to stay in Halloween Town, give you a little part of the story, or you leave Halloween Town, you go back to the real world. You get a different part of the story. So the idea here is that they want you to replay the game, so they didn't make it punishingly difficult. Now that you're relieved, and I saw some of you looking around going, oh no, this game's not for me, looks impossible, there's all kinds of crap on the screen, I assure you that you get unlimited continues so you can beat this game on the first go. And like I said, it's more about replayability. However, if you want to get that 1cc or that high score, or beat the game on the difficult mode, you're going to have to earn it. So just keep that in mind. Death Smiles is bright and colorful, as you can see. The sprites are massive, but you actually have a very little hitbox. Your hitbox is kind of in the center of your chest. It's a little glowing orb, but everything else won't kill you if you get hit like in the toe or something. It's not that punishing. You get an animal familiar that will help you on your way, and some screen clearing bombs. You get 3 hits, and if the meter at the bottom right hand screen gets to 1000, you can unleash a special attack for a limited amount of time. While the gameplay is classic side-scrolling bullet hell style, the developers added some vertical elements along with some left to the right to the left sections, so they try and break up the gameplay that way. You can also shoot to the left and the right, sort of like Defender, and all of the levels look amazing and are full of detail. The bosses are unique and interesting, and really what we're looking for in some of these shooters is, does stuff explode real good? And in Death Smiles, everything explodes real good. So you get that satisfaction when things go kablooey. And that's so satisfying. The backgrounds are also nicely detailed, and the enemy designs fit the stages very, very well. The whole thing is very gothic oriented, as you can tell. Bright, colorful, beautiful to look at, fun to play, and it's a co-op game. So sit down with a buddy and power through Death Smiles. Again, one of the things that makes Death Smiles great is the same thing that makes Raiden Fighters Aces great. It's on the 360, and let's face it, those games are still kind of cheap right now, and we all know how this is going to go, right? The regular version is about 25 bucks, okay? But there is a collector's version, which I recommend you just sort of pony up and get. It comes with a faceplate, the Xbox version of the game, the arcade version of the game, the arcade version 1.1 version of the game, and the Black Label version of the game. Now, the Black Label version of the game was only released as 250 arcade cabinets in Japan. So having that extra version of the game, in my opinion, is absolutely worth the money. And it comes in a really cool, like, longer box, and it's about 60 bucks right now. So if you collect 360, you collect shooters, you collect those unique things, face plates, it's incredible. So if you want to get this game on the 360, I just recommend biting the bullet, paying the 60 or 70 bucks, and getting the limited edition because it is really good. It comes with a soundtrack too. I don't know if I mentioned that. Death Smiles 1 and 2 is actually released on the Switch. Death Smiles 2 is sort of the same thing, but it takes place in Christmas Town. That was also actually released on the 360, but only in Japan. So if you got the ability to play import Xbox 360 games, you might want to look at that and get that, because I think it's starting to get really expensive. But the strength is that it's for everybody. Death Smiles is one of those games that anybody can just sort of pick up and play and have a great time. So here we go. Moving on to the top 3. This is getting exciting. Time to get serious. Time to get hardcore. Coming in at number 3 is Soldier Blade on the TurboGrafx 16/PC engine. Now, the 16-bit era, I know I just dumped on the Super Nintendo, but here in the States, we seem to get a lot of shooters on a lot of different platforms, and Soldier Blade is absolutely the best shooter of the 16-bit era. So now you know we're getting down to serious business. Soldier Blade is the 4th game in the Star Soldier franchise, and it's really one of the best shooters of all time. It is probably the best example of risk versus reward in any shooter. You collect the power-ups. Red is a spread shot, green is the wave beam, blue is the laser. Not any more complicated than that. However, if you get 3 of the same color, you are at max power with that weapon. The power-up you collected also acts as your bomb, so if you're in a sticky situation and you need to use a bomb, by default you're going to downgrade your main weapon. Say you're maxed out level 3 with the blue laser, you need to use a bomb, you're going to come down to level 2. Having multiple power-ups can also give you the ability to take a hit as long as you have at least one power-up. You also get a companionship, which is nice. I'm sort of lukewarm on the companionship gimmick, but it does help you out in this game. You can select the speed of your ship by pressing the select button, which is a nice feature to have. and you are automatically given auto fire. I mean, come on, it's on the TurboGrafx 16, right? So you just hold down the button and you're just shooting, which is great. Our thumbs, thank you. But Soldier Blade might not be for everyone, as the controls are a little bit twitchy. The game can get quite challenging. You're working with a limited amount of continues, and there are 0 checkpoints. The game can sometimes move at a blistering pace. You have no choice if you want to get better. You got to play. You got to get in those meaningful reps that allow your brain to remember every bullet and every enemy spawn point. The bosses are massive compared to your ship and require you to learn not only the patterns, but the appropriate times to use your bombs, because the bombs also give you a little bit of invincibility time. The bosses also take a ton of damage, so you really need to have the skill to get to that 3rd or 4th cycle of the boss patterns. Graphically, the game looks amazing. Colors pop off the screen, and the backgrounds fit the levels. They are interesting to look at. The soundtrack, being on the TurboGrafx 16, is top notch. Each track is heart pumping and will get you excited to play the level. Soldier Blade is very playable. It's very balanced. Everyone can pick it up and have fun with it, but it will take you some time to get good at it. So Soldier Blade is very tough. I was only able to beat this game one time on the normal mode. It can be absolutely brutal, but if you're a fan of shooters, try and move this one to the top of the backlog. Now, unfortunately, it's expensive to own physically. It was, what did I put down here? $200. Ugh. But there was a PSP collection, so that's like $125, $150. And you could always check like the PlayStation Store, the eShop, that kind of thing. Hopefully, because Konami has owned the license for the Star Soldier series since like 2012. Hopefully, fingers crossed, they'll release a compilation like they did with Castlevania and Contra, and we'll just get all of the Star Soldier games on one disc or one SD card if you're a Switch lover out there. But yeah, with any luck, we'll get that. But if you get the ability to emulate and play Soldier Blade, definitely give it a try. Coming in at number 2 is Castle Shikami 2 on the PlayStation 2. Now, when it comes to Japanese style arcade games coming over to North America, there really isn't any better than the Shikigami no Shiro series, known to us probably as Mobile Light Force, maybe Castle Shikigami. There's a 3rd game on the Wii, which is getting kind of rare, so maybe check that one out. And while these shooters have sort of a tumultuous, confusing, questionable journey when they come over to the United States, when you unpack Castle Shikigami 2, you will find all the love and charm that you would ever want in a shooter. All right, so let's just get this out of the way first. The English translation in this game is horrible, but it's actually quite comical, and it adds to the charm in my opinion. The graphics look great, the soundtrack is rocking, things are bright and colorful, and the gameplay reminds me of a cross between, say, like a cave shooter and more of a Toho-style shooter. Each character has their own distinctive shot patterns, and they have 2 Shikigami spirit powers. You need to choose one of these powers when you begin play, and you can't switch them up during the game, so the one that you choose is the one that you're stuck with. Your Shikigami powers are more powerful attacks that can range from, say, a spirit doppelganger that will fly across the screen and attack enemies, to giant blades that you can manipulate around your character for defensive and offensive attacks. However, when you use your Shikigami power, it will slow you down. You also get 3 bombs that will essentially clear the screen. And to help you out, you'll get to take 3 hits before you die. Now, you are working with a limited amount of continues, but in true Shikigami no Shiro, Castle of Shikigami fashion, you will earn an extra credit for every hour of gameplay you log, up to 9 continues. And quite honestly, once you've earned the final continue, you're already going to be really good at the first 5 or 6 levels. Each of the 7 levels contains 2 parts. At the end of the first part, you'll fight a mini-boss, usually some type of mech or machine. And at the end of the second part of the level, you're going to fight a human character that has a much harder bullet pattern, and you'll need to strategize a little bit more if you want to get past those bosses. Oh, dear God. Sorry, my bad. We didn't even talk about the gameplay. So Castle Shikigami 2 is a bullet hell shooter. So if you like bullet hell shooters, definitely check this one out. But It's actually a bullet grazer. It's a subgenre of bullet hell. As you're looking at the video, you'll probably notice that your return fire at some point will turn from blue to red. As you graze, get closer to enemy bullets, your return fire becomes more powerful and it turns red. This adds a very nice risk reward to the game, because are you trying to get a high score, or are you just trying to survive the level? So Castle Shikigami 2 is a great game. It's one of those PS2 games that's still affordable. It's about 25, 30 bucks for a complete in-box copy. And while it was released on the Switch, it's about 50 bucks on the Switch. And the Switch version has some different modes, like a leaderboard mode and a mode where you can switch characters in the middle of the game, like Tekken Tag or something like that. But either way, I really feel that the Shikigami no Shiro series is very underappreciated here in the United States. But I think if you give this game a try, you are absolutely going to love it. So here we are, number 1. There is no doubt, no argument. Einhander for the PlayStation 1. Einhander is unique. It is special. Some of the more popular games, Battle Garega, Dodonpachi, they're all very similar in style. They are very flashy, beautiful, fun, awesome games. But Einhander is better. Einhander offers you a shooter experience like no other. It is in-depth. It was made with love. And in my opinion, it is the best shooter of all time. Einhander is unlike any other shooter you will ever play. Square, who produced about 50 games for the PlayStation 1, mostly those awesome RPGs that we all know and love, incorporated a story about an experimental fighter plane and a pilot as the Earth and the Moon are at war. After you beat a level, you get another part of the story, and you're sent on to the next area, so on and so forth. It sort of reminds me of Tecmo Theater, the old Ninja Gaiden gimmick where you beat the level and you get another part of the story and you're excited to move on. That's how Einhander is. The main gimmick in Einhander is that the fighter's manipulator arm can steal weapons from enemies once they've taken enough damage. Now, you really need to know what these weapons do and how to use them, because you can use them in a couple different ways. The Vulcan machine gun, for example, will shoot downward at a 45-degree angle. You can use a circle button to flip that weapon to the top of your ship, where it will shoot forward. Another great example is the Wasp missile launcher. When it's on the bottom of the ship, they will shoot missiles straight forward. But when you rotate it and put it on top of the ship, it becomes homing missiles, and it will even attack enemies that are in the background. The grenade launcher and the shotgun, for example, you can shoot forward and backwards. So again, you have to have an intimate knowledge of how these weapons work and in what situations you're going to need them. Each level feels unique and is accompanied by a killer soundtrack. There are some secret challenges in each level that you can unlock, new ships and new weapons, that type of stuff. But some of the ships will grant you the ability to hold up to 3 enemy weapons at a time, which you can cycle through. Or there's even a ship that will allow you to activate and use 2 enemy weapons at the same time, but you do lose your machine gun. So there's a little bit of trade-off there, pros and cons, right? The bosses are incredible, and not only are the bosses imposing, but they require you to understand their patterns and what weapons work best for them. But in true Square fashion, you can target certain parts of bosses and take them apart piece by piece if you want to. Unfortunately, Einhander is another one of those expensive games coming in around 200 bucks or so, and they've never remade it, they've never remastered it, they've never put it on some type of collection. They actually took it off of the PlayStation Store, so you can't even download it for 10 bucks or whatever it was. But if you can emulate it. If you are a collector and you want something very special in your collection, a special game by a special game company that came out during a very special time in gaming, then I think $200 is worth adding Einhander to your collection. I honestly believe that. You guys know me. Expensive games, most of the time I'm going to tell you to emulate it or trade for it. But if you collect PlayStation 1 and you don't have this one in your collection, it might be time to get it, because it is so unique. And it is, like I said, it is one of a kind, and it is the best. It's not an expensive game that is a dumpster fire of a game. It's actually one of the best games of all time. So there you have it, guys. My favorite shooters of all time. What are some of your favorite shooters? Make sure that you leave a comment down below. And on your way out, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share on social media because that really does help me out a lot. And don't forget to bang that notification bell, or should I say don't forget to shoot that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all of your CM retro gaming goodness. Guys, take care of yourselves, and we will see you, kapow, on the next one.